All right. Morning.
Morning.
So, let's talk about winning. As you know, well, I'll tell you a little bit about the weekend. It was quite the deal, quite the learning experience. I was certainly caught off guard on some of it, just having never experienced it before was interesting. As you know, I worked for a couple of months on a stage routine, which when we timed it was about 50 seconds. So walk out, turn, pose, walk up front, 4 poses, wave to the crowd, walk off. I signed up for 3 events. Give you kind of a idea. I won't bore you with all the details. We could talk more if you want to know. But I know so many of you guys have been so supportive, and so I appreciate that for sure. But I signed up for 3 events, and on the very first event, I went out there, man, I was not feeling good at all. I had cramped so heavily on Thursday that I went into a full body lock. I had cramps up the insides of both legs, both rib cages, and my back at the same time. I couldn't get out of my chair for about 45 minutes. So I then defined that lazy boy of mine as the chair of death. So I would not get back in that chair. To recline it, you have to push the bottom back in using your hamstrings. So I was stuck in that thing. I mean, I've had normal people cramps, and they suck. These were a whole nother level, like literally entire body was locked up. I mean, it was intense. So on Thursday I changed my diet. My trainer's phenomenal, but he has a tendency to be a typical dude, and he's retired military. So sometimes not a whole lot of detail or kind of just, in some cases, kind of, you'll figure it out. And so I immediately was like, oh man, I got to do something. So of course, you can't have water, you don't have salt, which is really causing the cramp. So I jacked up my potassium and magnesium pills by 4 times, and I switched all my food that day immediately. I threw out like 10 rice cakes and replaced them with bananas. I threw out brown rice, replaced them with sweet potatoes. Anything I can do to get potassium in my system. I think that was probably what helped, but it was still pretty gnarly. Learned not to yawn, not to stretch. I even got. Have you ever had your jaw lock out of place? You ever had that before? So my jaw did that twice, which really sucks. So it was crazy. I woke up Saturday morning and just felt so taxed. So learned some things along the way of how things can be done a little bit different, but I was planning on 60 seconds on the stage. The first ended up being the largest show in Utah history. 300 spots were competed in. And so that kind of changed the dynamics. Unfortunately, the event place, and my coaches are gonna send a complaint to the people who organized it and find out how this is possible. But typically they break up every group into height because it's not reasonable to compete a guy who's 5'8" against someone who's 6'2", because the 6'2" guy will just look bigger. So unfortunately, in two of my um, classes, they put me in with guys that were over 6 feet tall, and so when you get in the lineup, you don't really have a chance. My coaches said immediately when I walked out on um, the second competition, they were like, "No, he's screwed." Because they're both judges, or the one's been a judge for 20 years. But then she thought, as the posing went on, she thought, well, gosh, maybe they'll notice that he looks better, because he looks quite a bit better than most of them. But I still didn't get in the top 5. And so, but on the very first time I went out, I ended up on stage, instead of for 1 minute, I was on stage for over 15 minutes, which is shallow breathing and flexing the entire time. And man, I was shaking and felt like I was near passing out. I mean, it was insane. But it was.
Why did that happen?
A lot of people on the stage, lots of competitors, lots of competition.
Too many.
But also, the main reason it happened was that was the area that I wanted. So my coaches had told me ahead of time, listen, so they bring you up, you pose, you go through your thing, and then they'll divide you up on the two sides of the stage. They'll bring up people in groups. They'll divide you up on the two sides, and then they'll call out numbers. So I have a number button on my shorts. If they call out your number and they call you out first, and there'll be somebody on the stage that will be orchestrating to make sure you know where you're going. But if they call out your number first, that means you're in the center stage, and they have X's out there. And that means that right now they feel like you're the number 1 position, number 1, number 2, number 3. And then they call out your name second, you're 2, and they'll call out 5, and 2 goes to the left, and 3 goes to the right, 4 goes back to the left, and 5 goes to the right. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So called out, did my thing, and then I was put to the side, and then they run people through. But the whole time you're standing to the side, you're still flexing, because the judges are looking at everyone, and they're trying to see, is there somebody over there that should be in the middle? So they call out my name, or my number, which is like, oh crap, here it is. And they told me if they call you out and you get call outs, they call it first call out. If you get first call out, that means you're probably going to be in the top 5, but they can move you out of there. So as soon as they call you up, you have to turn it up a notch, and you've got to fight for your spot. And then what happened is they called me out, so I went, and they called me into position 1. And so I stood up and went for it, trying to listen to my coach, which is yelling, all sorts of things about how to flex and what to do and move this and move that. And, it's pretty intense. People are screaming and from everywhere, calling out to their competitors. It's pretty cool. But that definitely was a big adrenaline rush. Like, okay, right now I'm in the top 5 in this category. But that continued on for another 10 minutes. So I was standing up there. They then called my number. So then what they'll do is they'll say, number 38, which was mine, switch number 10. And so you raise your hand when you get your name called, and the other person raises their hand, and now you know who you're switching with. And so when I went up there, they switched me, and I went into the middle. So I was like, oh crap. And my coach said, hey, this is it, and she's screaming, So it was pretty awesome. It was definitely the highlight of the show, because you're feeling like, all right, I might get something here, So I'm there, and there's a ton of dudes, and for 10 minutes, they called out numbers, but never moved me. So they were switching guys around me to see people next to me. And so at the end of the pre-judging, which is the morning, my coaches said, gosh, I don't know, don't think you got anything in the other 2, which in one of the classes, we knew going into it that there's no way I would get it, cause it was called open, so anybody and everybody, so you're competing, it was just to get to more experience on stage. But then I was in masters, which was guys 35 and older. And I'm at the high end, it's actually 35 to 45, and I'm 44, so I'm at the high end of that ball game. Most of the guys were, at the younger end. It gets very little competitors. 95% of the competitors are probably, 18 to 25 or 30, and then you have a lot less going on. But at any rate, so yeah, we came out of there, and my coach said, "Okay, I want you to go get a burger and fries," and I'm like, "Oh, it's crazy," and then go to sleep, try to rest. And so went and got in and out. It's like my birthday.
Were you able to eat it yet?
I ate half of it because I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to feel bloated. But yeah, it was delightful. Yeah, so we did that.
I'm really sorry.
So we did that, and I was able to sleep for about an hour, and then we went back, and they said, "Yeah, you don't know, you just kind of have to, now we just see what happened. You should be in the top 5, so yeah, went back, and then what they do at night is they want every competitor to be able to be on stage, so they'll run everyone out there individually and let them do their routines, and then they'll just, and then individually in each recognition category, they'll then just call out the top 5, and you go out on the stage. So not everybody in that group goes out, but just the top 5 go out, and then they call out your numbers. So you walk out, you pose. They said there's maybe a less than 5% chance that they haven't totally made their mind up in a category, and they might be still deciding on something, but most of the time they got it figured out already. So they'll call it out, top 5 people will be standing there, and then they'll call out numbers.
What kind of categories?
So they have like novice, true novice, masters. So true novice is your first time ever, which we figured I would dominate in. But that was the one they put me in with guys over 6 feet. And my coaches said, both of my coaches are very blunt, very straightforward. They don't, which is the way you have to be to be useful to me in the sport. They don't say it unless they mean it, and they'll also tell you what the truth is, whether you want to hear it or not, which is good. You have to have it that way. But they both said that I should have still been easily in the top 5. But every person that was in the top 5 was in their early 20s and over 6 feet tall. So they said it's just hard for judges to see past height, and said if they would have really looked, they would have seen that, you should have been in there, but there's nothing you can do other than, it's judgment. So, true novice was first time. Novice, which I did not compete in, which in retrospect, they said I should have, because I would have definitely placed in this category. Novice is anyone who's been in these before but has never finished in a top 3. And then masters is an age bracket, so like for instance 35 to 45 or 45 to 55, type of thing. So I'll have a huge advantage next year as a 45-year-old cause I could actually compete in both. I could do 35 to 45 and 55 to, or 45 to 55. So 45 to 55 would be easy, well, at least from what I saw at this event. I mean, they look impressive, but they just don't. A lot of the dudes that are older don't have much muscle mass. Some of the guys just look like they're in okay shape. Some of the dudes are ripped, look very good for their age. But when you're saying you look good for your age, you're not gonna compete against me standing next to you that, probably looks good for any age, at some level. So, so at any rate, then they have, those are all physique, which is really designed to be the fitness model look. So if you look at online, I showed where I got up for the top 5, and then they called out our names. You see a guy, a black guy, that gives me a high five afterwards. He's on my team, and he's if he came in here and we both took our shirts off, you would, if you didn't know what you're looking for, some people might say, well, he looks better because he's bulkier. He's 5'6", but he weighs more than I do by probably 10 or 12 pounds. So he's very bulky, he's big, but he's not anywhere near as defined. He doesn't have as wide of a back as I do, or lats, and definitely doesn't have a six-pack as much. So in the physique category, there's a specific body they're looking for, which suits my body, which is that fitness model look. He was in what they call classic physique, which is where instead of board shorts, you show up in kind of those beach muscle guy kind of black shorts, where they're kind of a bike short that's a little tighter black, and it's a full body. In physique, they only focus on the waist up. And it's kind of, it was meant to appeal to a larger audience instead of big giant muscle bound guys that most people can't relate to. So there's that class I was in, and there's this physique, classic physique, which is the full body, and it's kind of mid-range bodybuilder look. And then there's bodybuilding, which is big, bulky dudes that you would expect. So there's all these classes, and then there's age groups. So, and then in all of them, it's a true novice, masters, and open. So there's quite a few categories. Then they had a whole nother set of categories for women. So fitness, and bikini, and I didn't see any of it. I was interested in sleeping and eating and practicing. But yeah, and then apparently they have a whole new category that they just started for women, which is trying to go towards the maybe everyday ghetto booty type of woman. A whole different body. Yeah. I heard very little about it, and I was like, that's interesting. So I say that's interesting as in not at all. But at any rate, so it was interesting, but what definitely happened to me was I feel like I'll probably eventually, maybe in a couple of years, I'll end up in the classic physique category, which is the mid-range bodybuilding one. Because I saw a lot of guys in that category that aren't bulky, but they still won. So they just look very proportionate. They were just like specimens, just very well sculpted bodies. So that's, I think, where I'd like to be in maybe 2 years. So, yeah. So we're doing FitCon next, which is May 1st. And the goal is to add some, so I got to eat a full, beautiful breakfast today. So this is exciting.
You know, Jim too.
Oatmeal,
And you get to drink some water.
scrambled
Real
egg.
water.
I had a half a gallon of water. But my body's still not even close to
Oh,
recovery.
yeah.
I went to sleep, last night at 10, which is early for me. I was exhausted, like almost so tired that I couldn't sleep, if you've ever been there. Heart was pounding, so I tried to drink more water. But I went to bed at like 10 and I slept till 8, which is, what is that,
Wow.
10 hours?
Good job.
I haven't done that in
Your body
forever.
needs it,
And I woke up at 8, I was like, I still need sleep. I still feel tired right now. He said it'll take a week, that I can't lift this whole week, can't lift weights. He said you'll do more damage than good, because your body needs to recover. So he said if you absolutely have to, because I was texting yesterday, dude, I said, I already feel like I need to go to the gym. He's like, I know how you feel, if you have to go, just do cardio, don't lift, so. We'll see, but it was fun.
So you got second, and what?
I got second in men's physique, 35 and older. Yep. So, this is the category we didn't really think I would place in. So that was cool,
That's funny.
yeah. Cause I was in with guys that have been doing it a while, not with, new people. But yeah, so,
So did C compete?
no, he competes in, not this Saturday, but the next one in Baltimore at a pro event. This wasn't a pro event. So yeah, yep. He's looking pretty good, but the next 2 weeks he'll really lean up. So, you imagine that guy, he goes from about 240, 245 down to 212 is his stage weight. So he drops that in 12 weeks. So pretty intense. And 212 at his size, it's like crazy lean. But my stage weight ended up being 165. And so a year ago I was at 235, so it was exactly 70 pounds. Yeah. So they say needlessly to say the next one will be easier, because I'm not coming from 70 pounds out. But, and they say your body will remember and sort of rebound back and stay here, stay in a weight like 175 to 180 range, so don't have to go down. 12 weeks out I was at 187, almost 188. So in that 12 weeks to drop, whatever that is, 20-something pounds, 23, is a lot for your body to do.
So do you have different pant sizes for when you're bigger? Like size 28?
Yeah, he told me 3 months ago, he said, listen, don't throw out your clothes and don't go buy a bunch of new ones. Just cinch them the next little while, because, yeah, but on stage I wore size 28 shorts, and, from the boys section.
Yeah.
And a year ago I was wearing 38s, so that's,
Yeah.
10 sizes. Yeah. I didn't keep the 38s.
No.
I've given the 38s away. I've donated all my 38s and my 36s and my 34s and my 32s. Yeah, so I don't need to go back to,
No.
so I'll probably stay at about a waist size 30, 31, and then, yeah. So there you go. Now now I'll have a new meal plan for the next, till February 8th, which will be about over 3,000 calories a day, just high protein. Try to add muscle, which my body seems to do fairly productively, and then meet with my coaches this week and decide what needs to be done. There you go. The game has begun.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, what I've learned about this, obviously all the parallels between this and, business, it's all obvious. Discipline, hard work. You know, you always get people that are this way, and I wanted to share this today. I thought it was funny. Let's see. So on Facebook, there's always somebody that, you know, is this guy in your life. So this guy reaches out. Where is it? This guy reaches out. He used to be in our business under Rob Park, a guy named Chris Felter, if you remember. Lots of talk. For a little while, he put in some effort, but just kind of effort and then nothing. So I put up a post here in the last week showing my start of prep week. So this was Monday of last week, is a week ago. 1 week for the competition, I'll drop another 7 to 8 pounds minimum this week. Hopefully I look as ripped and pumped as I need to. Meal prep for today is done, morning cardio and abs are done, game on. And I showed a picture of my physique at that point, which looks like I don't have 7 to 8 pounds to lose. This guy's response, but this is always just, he said, if you want to lose some more, you need to go keto, brother. I'm like, lose more? I'm at 3% body fat. I said, thanks anyhow, brother. He said, and then he said, you gotta let me know, or you gotta let me in on what you're doing, man. It's, is it really that disciplined? I was like, are you on crack? Like, seriously. Like, that's brain cells.
No, everybody looks like
That's
this.
brain cells. That's brain cells missing. Like, so I said, I wake up at 4:45 a.m. I go to the gym for an hour and I do cardio and abs 7 days a week, with Saturday and Sunday being a little later. I go back at 4:30 p.m. and do 2 hours of weightlifting 6 days a week. I have a pro bodybuilder that works out with me, and he's laid out a specific nutrition plan that I stick to 100%. I've had 1 pizza, 1 hamburger, 1 pasta dish in 12 months. I lift weights in every single rep. I give it everything I got. No, I wouldn't say it takes much discipline.
You just visualize really well.
Yeah. It's easy. You just show up.
Just show up.
The lesson here for business is the difference between the champions, difference between the winners and the losers is the ones that show up every day and just work hard. It's not talent, it's not skill, it's just simply discipline, consistency, having a plan, following the plan. There's no secret. That's all it comes down to. And the end result, if you I have I think the right mindset. I'm not happy that I got second, but I'm satisfied that I placed. I want to be number one, but I feel good about what I've done. So there's a good competitive balance and a healthy way to look at things. At the same time, I looked at my body while I was there, and I said, it's not good enough for what I need to do, but I look damn good, you know? And so, you know, there's a good, healthy way to look at where you're at in life and in business, right? Hey, I'm here this morning, and I keep showing up, and I'm disciplined enough to stick with my commitments. I'm passionate about helping people. I'm passionate about having a better life for my family. I'm passionate about being able to control my time and my schedule. I like the people I work with. Are these all true statements? I hope they are for you. They are for me. I love focusing on self-improvement and trying to be a better me. If these are all true statements for you, then that's one side. The other side is, I definitely need to be more competitive. I definitely could work harder. I could be more consistent. I could be more disciplined. There's areas that I could definitely improve in, but you don't want to beat yourself up. You know, if I would have went out there and gone freaking number 2, you know, and I saw people doing this kind of stuff. I showed up, and the morning I showed up, I knew. The disappointment for me was that I knew Saturday morning I wasn't at my best. I actually looked better Sunday morning when I woke up.
Why is that?
That's after eating the heck out of the Cheesecake Factory. And I felt better. And that was after having a bunch of water. I was just too depleted. I was weak. I was just taxed. And so you learn for the next time. Maybe I followed my coach's instruction, but it's also a trial and error process.
Yeah,
Everybody's
nobody's
body's
the same.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't blame anyone. I don't beat myself up, but it's a learning process. One of my coaches, the female Chrissy, she said one of the most important things. She said, "This event is not the finish line. This event is the start line. This is where you begin." And so the same thing with you. You're not at the finish line. You're at the starting line. You're trying to figure out. And both of them kept saying to me, "All we're trying to do at this event is figure out your base." And so you keep track. You take a lot of notes. You figure out some things along the way. And we're just trying to figure out your base. So if you show up, when you show up next time, they said when you show up next time, you'll know your base. You'll know where you started 12 weeks out. You'll know what happened each day. You'll know what you ate. You'll know what worked and what didn't work. And you'll be able to make adjustments. And knowing what to expect alone will be a huge mental benefit. And, so the same thing applies with you guys today. You now know what to expect. You've kind of been through this process multiple times. You've been to events. You've kind of seen, where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are. You just continue to work on things. You say, what can I do to be a little bit better? When I go back to this next event, let me tell you this too, and I said this to one of my coaches, and she goes, "I hadn't thought about that, but you are 1,000% correct." So in the one event where in the events where I didn't place, the one that I did place, I'll start this, the one that I did place was my first event on stage, and that was one where I was on stage for over 15 minutes. It's possible that had any of the other events been my first event, that I would have also placed in those ones. The difference that by the end of that 15 minutes where I was already taxed, by the time I went back on stage second and third time, it was hard to even hold a pose because I was so depleted, just had nothing left, And so, the difference between success and failure is not miles, it's minutes, it's inches, it's such a small margin of error.
Hamburger.
Yeah.
Cheesecake cheesecake there.
And
some water.
And some water.
Yeah. So, with that having been said, you know, what I believe will be the case is that I will come back, you know, 6 months from now, and you think about the applicability of this to your business. I'll compete in 6 months from now and be substantially more competitive, but the difference will be just this much every day between now and then. And the end result will be only a few pounds. Like the day of the next event, I'll probably be, you know, a difference of maybe a percentage, a 0.5%, you know, less body fat and 5 or 6 pounds of muscle. But that's a 6-month period of time. So what do you need to do between now and, you know, 6 months from now to see a massive difference? Try just a couple of more appointments a week. I mean, if I said to you, what if you just did one more appointment a week, does that sound daunting, or does it sound potentially doable? Doable? What difference would that make over the next 6 months? Massive, yeah. So the difference for me is I'm pretty mindful nowadays. I wasn't maybe 2 years ago as mindful as I am today, but I'm mindful. You know, a lot's changed, and you look at how much has changed in my life in other ways. I was just praying about this morning. Probably the biggest blessing I have in my life is another human being right now, which I would have thought was impossible 2 or 3 months ago, you know, 4 months ago. So just little things, right? That kind of reminds me of your one recruit from Explosion, right? One person, one new relationship, one relationship could change everything, you know, mentally, emotionally, physically, your business. So this week, you know, can you do one more appointment than you did last week? You know, I mean, what have you been averaging? What do you think it is? Has it been 2 one-on-ones? Has it been 1 one-on-one? Has it been 3? What if you could do one more? And how much more effort would it take? Not much at all, but it would feel a lot better. And you start doing the math on that, it would make a huge difference mathematically 6 months from now. Make sense? Then you go 6 months down the road, and 6 months down the road, my coach said it. He said, let me show you something. This is Big C. He said, look at this, look at what I did recently. And he showed himself on stage his first time compared to himself on stage the last time. And all it's been is just consistency over a period of time. But it's night and day. You look at it and you go, holy cow, right? It's like, and yet, maybe the first time he was on stage, he would have just thought, man, I came so far, like how could I possibly improve? But just incrementally doing a little bit over time. All right?
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, guys.
Thanks, man.
Tonight, Inner Circle, for those that are changing their existence, it's going to be awesome tonight. Lots of new stuff. And then this week's meeting.